Hi all of you awesome scuba divers out there, welcome to Scuba Dive Magazine and welcome to Ask Mark, our scuba diving Q&A. So if you do have any scuba diving questions, by all means pop them down underneath the video and use this Ask Mark hashtag to get it featured in an up and coming video. I and the community as well, they do a great job. Do like to respond to any questions, make sure everyone gets an answer as soon as possible so you're not waiting for an answer. I do tend to type out an answer to anything with the Ask Mark hashtag, and then if it's an interesting question that I've not done before, I'll turn it into a video. This week we're talking about a minimal travel scuba diving setup from, I'm going to say Silly Willy. So Silly Willy says, hey Mark, I really appreciate you going over the options in this video for travel diving. I was curious if you have some recommendations for a carry-on setup for travel diving. I know you've done a video about travel diving and a checked bag, but was curious if you have a minimalist recommendation to be able to carry on between a backpack and a carry-on suitcase. I really appreciate any advice here. You'll be surprised just how little you really need to go scuba diving and how much you can actually fit in carry-on. I mean, the biggest things are going to be your BCD, your regulators, and your fins. They're the real big things. If it's like a wetsuit, then that can get quite clunky. If you're really trying to strip it down to just carry-on, I'd probably rent a wetsuit. It's not the nicest sort of sensation out there, but if you definitely need some kind of exposure protection wherever you're going, then yeah, I'd just rent a suit. Thinking about the BCD, so I'd definitely go down the backplate and wing setup. If I was buying everything brand new and I was trying to go as stripped down as possible so that it could fit in a backpack, I'd get, I just call them fabric back plates. That's surprisingly hard to say. A fabric backplate it's similar to a metal backplate, but it's made from fabric. It still has the kind of the slots where you need them, but it's completely fabric. If you're just diving a single cylinder, it's all you really need. It's gonna have wobble, it's gonna move around, but they weigh grams compared to an actual sheet of metal. The next option, you've got aluminium, you've got carbon fiber, and if you already have one of those, then yeah, that's perfectly fine. For a wing, I mean, my travel wing tends to be this guy. This is an Apex D18, yeah, and that's about as small as you go. I think there's an 11 in the Aqualung Rogue BCD. That's really sort of stripped down, but that would fit quite easily in carry-on. It's all you really need as long as you're weighted correctly. And yeah, just a single piece harness is pretty easy. If you're really trying to minimize the grams, I tend to use these. These are titanium D-rings. These are made by Dive Right. I don't know if they still make them, but as soon as I saw them, I snatched up a few. They're nice and low profile, so they don't stick out too much. They weigh nothing at all. It's titanium, and they're sliding, so it's not the best webbing. This is soft, like crotch strap webbing, so it stays in place when you've got on proper webbing. It stays in place. Ugh, this stuff is awful. When you actually have something attached onto it, but when you need to, you can slide it around. With a normal D-ring, you need the D-ring itself and you need a tri-glider, and that's just extra hardware. Granted, it's grams you're talking about instead of anything substantial, but if you're really trying to make it as light as possible, yeah, there's that. There's also Oh, it must be fitted. Instead of a stainless steel quick release buckle, you can get plastic ones, much lighter and still do the job. That's probably about as much as you don't really need a single tank adapter. A lot of wings nowadays have a like built-in sort of single tank adapter. They're just two little bars and they help your cylinder to prevent it from like rolling around on your back, especially if you don't have a single tank adapter and a solid back plate. It just gives it a bit of rigidity so it doesn't move, but you're still going to get some. But yeah, again, you can save some grams with that. With your BCD, because next I'm going to move on to regulators. With your BCD, if you want to go as light as possible, swap out your inflator for a, I don't really know what they call it, like an alternate integrated inflator. Something like a Scuba Pro Air 2. The Atomic, forgotten the name of it, but they basically have a second stage built into the your inflator, and that's your alternate air source, so you can leave your octo behind. And the hose as well, you have a single hose that leads to your alternate and your BCD inflator, which makes everything a lot lighter. You're halving the number of hoses, and yet it's a lot lighter. So your regulator, you'll just have the first stage, a relatively long hose leading to your primary. I'd probably fit like a 150 centimeter hose to my primary, just so that I can donate to my buddy and they have enough breathing space. I can be breathing from my inflator basically, and then get back to the surface. SPG, not really essential. You've got transmitters nowadays, so that's basically your regulators. You've got your primary, you've got the BCD hose, and to connect your pressure gauge to your dive computer. Boom. Your dive computer just goes on your wrist or in your bag. If it's a large screen, even if it's a large screen, if you're really sort of pressed for space in your carry-on, wear it on your wrist. There's not much they can do about that. That's probably it for your regulators. You might get a little like quizzed look from some airport security, but a lot of them have probably seen regulators before. It's not unusual for scuba divers to take regulators as carry-on because they don't want them damaged. Then your fins, you get a lot of lightweight like travel fins nowadays. The first one I think I saw were Aqualung Storm fins. I mean, there have been short fins for quite a while now, but ones that are specifically designed for scuba divers traveling. You get the Storm, you get the Storm Max, you get the Scuba Pro Go and the Scuba Pro Go Travel. And the difference is one version is meant to be worn barefoot, the other one is meant to be worn with boots or just neoprene socks. And they are probably a bit shorter than that. But you still have plenty of propulsion. You get a bungee heel strap, so they're quite nice, and you can travel with them. You can go for something a bit more substantial. You've got Scuba Pro Sea-Wing Supernova. It's that one that can disconnect the foot blade from the foot pocket, so they pack much easier. Tusa, you've got the high flex range where again you disconnect the blade from the foot pocket, but then you really have to bring a pair of boots with you, so you kind of have to decide, you have to pick your battle there. Otherwise, mask will fit in your foot pocket, dive computer, weight belt. A lot of the times the weight belt is given to you as part of the dive package. Double check first, obviously. Your logbook, you only need you don't really need your logbook because you can usually do it digitally with most dive computers nowadays. They're Bluetooth, and then there's a app on your phone, so you don't need to bring your logbook. If you do need to, only bring the pages that you really need. Don't bring the entire thing. Other than that, that's about it. You can scuba dive really light. I suppose you need clothes, but most of that won't fill up an entire carry-on. So yeah, you can dive really light, and you can travel with a lot of this stuff without a need for checked luggage. So it definitely can be done. Those would be my recommendations. The main one, yeah, is the BCD. And if you're desperate for space, again, you can rent a lot of stuff. A BCD isn't going to make or break your dive. So yeah, you might as well get some use out of there. It adds cost to your trip because you're paying rental fees, obviously. But hey, if you're desperate for space, then yeah, that's a big size taken out of your suitcase. Regulators, yeah, you can really strip them down, and if you can, you don't need a proper like cold water rated regulator. You can get a lot of lighter travel regulators nowadays that do save a lot of weight. Second stages as well, something like Apex XL4 or the new one, the Osea, is a lot smaller compared to a traditional second stage, so that's a lot easier to travel with. But yeah, you don't really need 2 second stages nowadays. If you really are trying to make it as stripped down and lightweight as possible, you can get air integrated inflators. Some divers aren't a huge fan of them, mainly because it's not really trained, and they are pretty rare, but they exist and they do work. They wouldn't produce them if they didn't work. And transmitters, as long as you trust the battery is sort of all topped up, then yeah, you don't really need an SPG. It's always nice. I always recommend bringing an SPG just because it's that redundant backup that can never like lose signal or run out of batteries. But I can't remember the last time a transmitter failed on me, mainly because I top up the battery or replace the battery pretty frequently. But yeah, that's probably my recommendations. And yeah, you can get a really light sort of backpack to go scuba diving. A lot of the time you can make the decision to start renting certain pieces of equipment. Try and do it as early as possible. Just to give the dive centre enough notice to make sure they can get the right size in for you. But yeah, if you are building an entire set and you are going like ultra light, yeah, I reckon you probably could fit pretty much everything that you need into a single backpack. Granted, yeah, you'll probably want like toiletries and clothes and things, but yeah, it'll all fit in carry-on. If you need more, if you want to, then yeah, you can expand into check-in as well. But no, if you're trying to go as light as possible, yeah, I reckon you could go pretty Spartan and just go with carry-on. If anyone has any experience just diving with carry-on, by all means, let us know down in the comments below. I don't think I've ever done it myself, but I've never like tested myself to doing it. I did dive once with a was it the Aeris jetpack? Was that what it was called? It was a BCD that Aeris, who I don't think really exist anymore. They were a part of the Oceanic group, and they created a BCD that kind of folded itself into a backpack. And I was testing one out, and yeah, it was perfectly fine. Simple BCD, wing style BCD, and yeah, I remember carrying that on the plane. Don't remember getting any issues with airport security or anything. And yeah, that had a backpack section, so you could fit more stuff into it. And with a lot of fins nowadays, they're designed to be a lot smaller and compact. But if you're diving, like, it really comes down to the water temperature. If it starts to get a bit colder water, then you need boots, and then you need bigger fins. So that's going to take up more space in your bag. But yeah, I reckon you could sort of pack for a trip pretty light. But yeah, any experience, by all means, let us know down in the comments below, as well as any other questions. If you do have any scuba diving questions, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use this #AskMark hashtag to get it featured in an up and coming video, and head over to our website scubadivingmag.com for the latest scuba diving news, and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.